Hey, this is Rashonda Thornton, the Dietitian Against Diets podcast show. I am excited to introduce you to my new monthly panel series called Heart and Grit, Conversations with Mindful Leaders. Now, through these conversations, you will be able to connect to the trials and tribulations that they struggle, but also recognizing the success they've had in their lives. Thanks to Midwest Dairy, every month I will be joined by a different dynamic set of leaders who have done all the footwork behind the scenes, but they have done it with a passion and with their heart. This is an opportunity to connect with their stories, learn their struggles, and celebrate their successes. But most of all, find a way to connect to your life and how this can be an inspiration to you. All right, now we have another panel guest edition this month. So we are now in the month of March. Remember, the panel discussion today is going to be centered around pro athletes to pure leadership. So, being a professional athlete comes with an unfair share of costs and benefits. And I can imagine the expectations and the pressure to perform at the top level, along with the public opinion and all the pressure that comes with it. Now, I know also as being an athlete, you've developed so many different transferable skills, from dedication, focus, to selfishness, to selflessness. I also know that sports can also be the further grounding for developing leadership skills. So this month's topic is just that, pro athletes to pure leadership. I want to introduce you to my March panel, a well-known and well-respected professional athletes who have continued their leadership after their careers. So I'm going to start over to my left. I have Pastor Darren Carrington. He is a former NFL player and currently marriage and family pastor at Rock Church in California. And also to my right, I have Larry Hughes, which is a former NBA player and founder of the Larry Hughes Basketball Academy. So I want to, before I keep rambling, I want to just say thank you guys for just taking the time out of your busy schedule to be a part of this panel discussion today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me. Part of it.
Yes. So there's so many different things that I can't wait to talk to you about. And the reason why I even curated this panel, because, any person you see on television, you looked up to them since you were little children, they always seem untouchable, but all you see is the commercials, you see the games, you don't see all the work that happened before that or even happening behind the scenes. So I thought this was a perfect opportunity, especially when you're retiring. When you're retired, you're out of that limelight. So there's a lot of questions, what's going on, who are those individuals turning into? What are they doing in their life? So this would be a great opportunity because you gentlemen have, taken the time that you have this free amount of time to take any route you want, but you chose to put your energy into helping others. So that's very commendable. So I'm actually going to start off talking about how your decision upon retiring paved your new career pathway. And I'll start with you, Larry. Now, I know you're from St. Louis, and giving back to your hometown is always commendable. Now, upon retiring, when was the point you realized St. Louis needed a program such as the one you created?
I think it happened pretty quickly. I have kids that were in the youth basketball space, so I was in a bunch of gyms, just kind of watching our kids play, watching, their attitudes, just watching the entire basketball environment. And keep in mind, I've been in and out of St. Louis for a number of years, just kind of stopping in, a few times during the summer months because I was playing. But once I retired, I was able to, just really understand the environment. So what I was thinking was a lot of players that I saw, I'm like, man, if they just had this, or if we just had a little bit more time to do this, they would be much more, they would be a better player. And so what I thought was, hey, start an academy, a program where we work on skill development, we work on these fundamental skills, where if these kids pick up on these skills, they'll obviously have more fun, but they'll also be more efficient with what they're doing. So that was kind of the birth of it, is just really being in the gyms and then kind of identifying ways that I could help and support the young people that were playing the game that I loved. And it was through a skills and drills program where we really, really honed in on the fundamentals of basketball and then also character development that matches up with athletic skill.
Yeah, and I'm glad when you say character development, because that's a big part of it, not just the skill set, but the teamwork and the sportsmanship that comes along with it. And it just kind of, when I think about academies or clubs, or the first thing I think about how much money it's going to cost, and especially in lower income communities, that's the barrier. And to me, that can make or break a child's just confidence level to even know that he can excel more because he feel like he's limited. So I'm assuming like your academy, does it center itself around those communities that are in need of it? Does it create opportunities for a spectrum of young kids?
Well, it's creating opportunities, and it's not in the heart of the inner city where we are most disenfranchised or we're most underprivileged. It's an area where it's a little bit nicer. Because what I'm thinking is if I build a facility, it's all, personally funded. I mean, I, wrote all the checks to build this facility to allow the young people to come in and experience the game.
Wow.
But it's not right in the neighborhood. But my thinking is I want to remove those young people from those neighborhoods so they can experience something that's different, so something that looks different, so they start to understand what those opportunities are. And we never turn anyone away, but at the same time, we're not right next door. So we want those kids to get out, out of their environment, out of their comfort zone, and come to experience something that's a little bit different. And then those opportunities just happen.
Yeah, so it's kind of like exposing them to, places that they haven't been, so they can literally see it with their own eyes, what other parts of the town or the country or the region looks like. So so you're very intentional in where you place your facility. Now, that speaks even more to your academy and the organization. Yeah. I'm going to talk to you, Pastor Darren. Following your past career in the NFL, you dedicated your life as a pastor to serving others, specifically families. Now, many people never realize their calling when it's right in front of them, or they procrastinate or try to ignore it. But some people know it's inevitable. They know that that's just something they're meant to do. So was serving in the ministry ever like on your radar? And if so, what decision led to that choice?
Yes. It actually was not on my radar. After, playing, my goal, my dream was to play professionally. And once I achieved that goal, I felt like there was something that was still missing. And on my journey, I realized the thing that was missing was a relationship with the Lord, right? Which was something that was bigger than me. And like I said, it was probably a 2-year process for me really to understand it, because I've seen what people who went to church look like. I've seen what it looked like for that hour and a half to maybe 5 hours, depending on what church you went to. But I've seen what it looked like on Sunday, but I didn't see what it looked like apart from Sunday. And when I started to surround myself with men who were really living it, I began to see, okay, I know that dream that I had, I've achieved that dream, and there's something missing. And I now know what that thing is that's missing. It's with a relationship with the Lord, which is something that's bigger than me. And Larry's experience, we all experience, every player will experience, one day you're not going to be that guy, right? One day it's going to be over. But you being a man, you being a husband, a father, right? All those things, a friend, a mentor, a coach, those things will last forever. So that's what it was with me, is once I saw that and the impact I could have, apart from the game, I knew that, okay, that's what I want, and that's what my life is about.
So it's interesting that you recognizing this is a calling for you, and this is the next step, the next huge step after your football career. Now, I know that you gravitate around families and marriage. Now that's kind of even more of a deeper dive, because that gets more intimate. And so, like, even with that, in that space, how have you found like this is an area within the ministry that's where you're supposed to be?
Yeah. So when I started in ministry, first of all, your life is the best experience, but it's an experience. It's not the best experience. The best experience typically is either someone else's experience or you processing your experience. It's not just experience, because some people do the same thing over and over and then they expect different results. So as I experienced life, I realized, me coming from the family I came from, I realized that's not the ideal way to do it. So I learned how not to do it. And then once I was playing and I surrounded myself with those men who were living it, I learned, okay, that's how to do it. And then I purpose my life and my heart to do it the right way. And when I first got into ministry, I was a youth pastor, right? So
Okay.
I was ministering to high school students, and half of my ministry, they came from, broken homes. They came from dysfunctional homes. And one of the things that it bugs me when people say, I know how you feel, when they don't know how you feel. If you didn't grow up without a father, you don't know how a kid feels who's not grown up with a father. So me being there, and I feel like the Lord placed me there so that I can look a kid in the eye and say, I know how you feel, but that doesn't have to be your destiny, right? You can change the direction and the path of your life, just making the right decisions every single day. And that's really what it was. I really changed, kind of flipped it, and made me realize, okay, that's where I need to be. And then the Lord moved me right from high school ministry to marriage and family, which in a sense is still doing high school ministry, right? Because you're really molding and shaping, families, dealing with married couples. So it's been a blessing. It's been
So,
challenging, but it's been a blessing.
yeah, I was going to say because that's more intimate, but like you're not going to the root of kind of the root of the cause, because if families are intact, they're building, they're growing in marriages, then the families can thrive. Then there's lesser children that are out there that has to be, with only one parent, So I just think it allows you to take kind of a step further and take a step back to how can I help this section, which will actually overflow and ripple effect to helping those the children and families and community. It's amazing how we all know that we have passion to do certain things, and you never know how God kind of shifts and pivots you in different directions. It's at the end of the day, like they always say, it's part of the plan. So you just walk through it. Yes. So a lot of times you don't even realize, what your experience as you're talking about has actually laying a foundation for your next experience. I know, being professional athletes, there has been some, the threading of like who you are as a person and how it has transferred over to where you're at now. And so, Larry, I'm going to ask you a quick question regarding that. We know that the reason behind every choice may not be recognized until later. As I was saying, like as you're moving in life, this is actually building something else for the next part of your life. You may not recognize it real time, but you'll see it in retrospect. So how did you weave the essence of being a leader on the court as an NBA player to the needed attributes to lead in other areas in your life that didn't come as natural?
Well, I think one of my good qualities is the ability to listen. And when you're playing, basketball for as long as I played, and obviously playing in the NBA, you meet a lot of people, and you get a chance to play with a lot of different players from many different backgrounds that have come from many different places that have completely different perspectives than what you have. So for me, understanding that first, in the basketball space of listening to your teammates, whether they have an issue with, something on the court or whether they're dealing with something off the court, just the ability to listen and do that at a high level. So when I transition into, my second phase of career, and it's talking about dealing with the young people and dealing with the youth, that skill still holds true as the ability to listen and find out what they need as opposed to, what I want to give them or what I want to do for them. So, really just transitioning those listening skills and the ability to act really helps me what I do today. And then obviously with being in the NBA, making a good living for myself, I'm able to go with my passion. And my passion is to help and support and to inspire, the many, young people that I come across. So I don't have to do things that's not fun for me or not exciting to put food on the table or anything like that. I can really focus on the things that I enjoy, and that's really listening and understanding how to help, push the young people forward.
Yeah. And, as you're telling me about, interacting with so many, when you're in NBA, interacting with so many different players from different backgrounds, different perspectives, I'm sure what comes with that is a lot of egos, and so, even having to navigate through that and, it's, obviously when you're a team, you put that to the side, but as an individual, everyone comes at that level with something, and, being in a position where, you're learning how to, look beyond and just listen and use it as like your power, your superpower. That's probably something that you may not even knew that you was gleaning from and being in the NBA, and now you're applying it now to the younger population. And the younger youth, they got their their egos as well, but you can see past that. Not only can you see past that, you're able to influence, obviously everyone knows you. You may not know them, but not even using your name or your status as something that is an ego center, but actually being there and coming out to the level and listening to them, seeing through, their egos, and just kind of help them. Like I say, one thing you said about your academy was about sportsmanship and, helping people to, it's about character building, not just being a good athlete, So I think a lot of that when it comes to your words, to your actions, I'm sure that, being able to listen to those players, let them know that you are listening to them because people want to be heard, and seeing past some of the whatever barriers that they have put across. And I'm sure that's probably a part of the success of your academy. And you love it. Just like you said, you can use your time for money for anything, but you're dedicating this for this.
That is exactly right. And I like to keep it simple is you have, 2 ears and 1 mouth that tells you exactly what to do. You have to listen twice as much as you talk. And then the other one is, hungry, humble, and smart. I mean, that's something that we preach within our academy, but not just to our players, but to our staff and to our parents, is just to have those, those qualities of being humble, being hungry, of course, and being smart, all the time.
Yeah. I think when people think about leadership, they always think about giving out demands. When leadership is really about learning, being empathetic, and knowing how to lead by example, lead by not just being posturous, but, lead by, listening and being a server. So, no, I really like that what you use is just being a listener. Like, that's a part of leadership,
Yeah.
Pastor Darren, now life has a way of revealing, as we talk about the threading of our lives when it comes to your career as a professional football player. Life has a way of revealing how our past has always set the stage for our future. How has the stage in ministry, how has the things you kind of gleaned from the NFL really set the stage that you didn't really recognize at the time? But also, what are some things you had to kind of peel back and put to the side that we didn't need? Like, what did you keep and what did you push away?
Yeah. It's as I was thinking about that question, I always said one of the things I always learned is that you can learn from any example, right? You can learn. People think that you could only learn from a good example, but you can learn valuable lessons from bad examples as well. So I don't know if it's necessarily me pushing things aside as more as taking from every situation, every experience, what I can learn and then pass on to others, right? So I feel like in light of all that, I would say that's probably it. For example, like I learned, how to be a father and how not to be a father. I learned, that life wasn't all about just, money, fame, and fortune, because if that was the answer, then everybody with money, fame, and fortune, they'd be happy and have no issues. And we know that that's not true, right? So,
Yeah.
during this process, I feel like the lessons that I learned from the game, and I think Larry talked about them as well, is just the teamwork, how to work together, respectful, perseverance, hard work, being able to push through challenging situations. When you feel like, man, I don't know if I can give anymore, you give a little bit more, right? So I wish that more people had the opportunity to play sports, because it's not just about winning and losing. There are valuable life lessons that you can't learn from other places the way you learn from sports. And I would say, man, that's probably one of the keys. Well, I pull from sports all the time, and it's awesome that my wife, she loves sports, so she gets my analogies when I bring them up to her.
Yes, no, I get it. I totally get it. And it's just something about an athlete's, personality, even, when they're not playing anymore. So it's like their grit. When I say grit is you learn discipline, you learn to, to stay focused. It's like so many things you learn it's not all about you as well. But you also learn how to be humble too, because you're not going to make all the shots. You're not going to make all the catches. You're not going to always win. You're going to sometimes be on a losing team, And so like learning how to not let that moment define you or use that as, a crutch I really think being an athlete, you don't even know you're building these skills. You're building skills of how to trust people. You building skills of how to be the person that people are leaning on and being able to take on that. So I just think it's so much, that you can choose to glean from, your past experience, especially being an athlete. And like you say, you not just the good stuff, but what about the not so good stuff? You learn from the bad stuff, And so again, it just kind of reflects on how much, our past really set the platform for our future, So thanks for sharing that. Again, it's things that people don't think through. They don't think about. The bad things can actually be something that we learn from and learn what not to do. Now, speaking of bad things, we know as our country, we've gone through an array of turmoil from our health to our society. And even in your positions, I know that you guys are feeling the ripple effects. Pastor Darren, I'm continuing to talk to you a little bit more about that. Obviously, I'm talking about the pandemic, even with the social injustice that's been happening. So I'm assuming, that you've had some unexpected changes and had to find some out-of-the-box strategies, especially when it comes to serving your congregation or even just your smaller cohorts when it comes to the families and in marriages. Now, what was the approach you took to continue to work, especially in light of the amount of disruption that we've been facing over the last year or so when it comes to families? And when we are in, when you come to a rock and a hard spot, that's how you test out who you really are. And I think we find ourselves in those positions over the last year.
Yeah. I would say, first of all, society has created a whole new platform that people didn't think was that you can get the things accomplished that we've gotten accomplished through Zoom, right? Everybody always felt like, man, we have to meet in person to get these things accomplished. But now that, you have these other options, so much more is getting accomplished. But, one of the things I would say just, on our side, one is in speaking to the social injustice, our pastor, he wrote a book called The Third Option, and I've become an active part of the team. And the third option really is typically when you talk about racial injustice or you talk about prejudice, it's always you got to pick us or you got to pick them. But his theme is there's a third option, and let's honor our similarities and celebrate our uniqueness. Right. So that's really been something that I've really been an advocate for. I've been on a team with that. But then the second thing is marriage. Is before the pandemic, most couples always talk about, we don't have enough time. We don't spend enough time together. And then when everything shut down and couples were forced to spend time together, they were like, help, because we're spending too much time together, right? So just in light of that, just having to help couples navigate through things. And like one of the things from sports is when I spoke to couples early in the pandemic, one of the things we talked about is we hear the term Omaha, right? Peyton Manning made it famous. And really what that is just an audible. So we had this play set up. We had you take the kids to school, I'll pick them up, I do dinner, you do clothes, laundry, boom, boom, boom. We had all these things set up. And then when the pandemic hit, everything changed. And what couples were trying to do, they were trying to do the same thing. And it was like there comes a point where you have to call an audible and say, hey, we got to regroup. We got to call a different play because times are different, right? So that's one thing that has really helped in those two areas of navigating through this pandemic.
Yeah, and I'm sure, like the way you're saying it, sounds we're nodding our heads, but I'm sure it was some complexity to communicating that and helping individuals to actually embed and implement some of those practices. Yes, and like you said, a lot of churches, we have to recognize, the gift of technology and how can we still keep our congregation intact. This is a time that our church needs, if they need the community, need, to remember where their hope is. And you guys are, just like many other churches, finding those holes and making sure that individuals are getting served the way that they need to, especially in these times. Larry, so I'm going to ask you when it comes to, the pandemic, I can only imagine what you did, especially last year, because last year's when it hit summertime, that's when basketball season, summer camps is happening. So how did you adjust to the dynamics of your academy last year when you knew that kids needed to keep active and stay engaged in a positive community setting?
Well, again, it was an opportunity for us to put our heads together and use the tools and the information that we had. And that was through online training. which, you try to find a silver lining in everything that you do or everything that happens. You always, try to find and search out the good. So what it allowed us to do is really, lock in on our online training program. And we created a program that's called TAP, which is train anywhere, any place. And for that, it allows us to reach and to connect with young athletes that outside of our area, outside of our region, for even that matter, outside of the country. So for us, obviously, we had the restrictions inside of the building. Our young people, they did not enjoy, doing the program, in their living room in front of the TV if they didn't have a backyard. But we made it through, and what was really important is we were there for them. So even though they couldn't come into our building, they couldn't come into the house where they've met new friends and start to learn new skills and build new talents, they had to do it from home, but we didn't leave them. So I think that for us was a way to, pandemic or not, snowstorm or not, things happen. So we just created a program that if in any case, we'll be able to serve you, we'll be able to give you some information that can help you, be a better person. And it's not just the basketball skills that we pushed through the pandemic. It was also the character building piece, because now you got little brother, little sister, everybody's in the house at the same time. So you got to be respectful to the little brother, little sister. You got to be respectful to mom and dad. So all of those things were built, inside of our roof, and the pandemic just allowed us to push that information out.
Yeah. It's I really think there is a lot of silver lining when it comes to this pandemic, because as we were talking about this, it helps people. I think also now it's the silver line is that we have just created a new permanent space, for the ministry, even for your academy, because you're kind of put in a position where you have to work with what you had, but you recognizing you can use that platform simultaneously, or if when needed. And that with our society, humans are pretty resilient. We can figure out how to keep living life. And now it's a norm. Zoom is a norm. Watching church from online is a norm. Knowing that you have to still practice, you figure it out. So I think that, there's a lot of silver lining in this pandemic, and obviously being leaders, you have to keep finding those ways to make the play happen, right? Win the game. I could be a little corny here and there. So yeah, so we're going to move on. Now, I know that behind every great work comes, hard work. And again, when you're a fan, when you're a child, you don't see that part of it. So I'm going to dig a little bit into that. And Larry, I'm going to start with you. Now, I know, especially, we talked a few months before we came on, and you listed at least 5 NBA teams you played with, and you mentioned, you had opportunity to play with a lot of great players. So you had just been swarmed in that whole stage where everyone looks up to. Now, I know that, again, we see that part, and it's the fun part, right? But any leader would tell you that behind the scenes, it's a roller coaster. And in your experience, what was the biggest setbacks, and how did you overcome that to follow your passion?
Well, I think the biggest setback for me throughout my career, my playing career, was injury. And injuries happen. It's hard to stay away from them. But there's some players that have very few injuries, and there are some players that have a lot of injuries. And I was kind of somewhere in the middle, where it was an injury that was not necessarily something that was going to keep me out for an entire year, but it was something that was going to kind of linger on for the entire year. So those are things that I had to deal with. But for me, it was about the adversity. It was about understanding my position and where I was, where I felt that I had a shortcoming, but understanding that there was somebody that, that was in a wheelchair, somebody that, had some sort of something that didn't allow them to do exactly what they wanted to do, that would always prompt me to push through. And my little brother was a huge inspiration. He's passed away due to heart issues, but he was a heart transplant. And for me, when I always went through adversity, he was a kid that was taking, 17 pills a day and, trying to maintain, heart health and things of that nature. So when I hit adversity of being tired from running, 10 and 1s or 17, or we had back-to-backs, those are the things that I relied on. Those people that would almost kill to be in a position that you're in, and you have to keep pushing, you have to keep trying to find a way. And there are just a bunch of sayings that are out there of, hard work pays off, and, tough times don't last, tough people do. I mean, these are all the things that I've kind of played around in my head to keep me motivated and keep me moving. So that's really how I did it, was to really lock in and understand that, I'm blessed to be in a position that I am, and the only way to keep going is to move forward.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you firsthand, like I say, you had, someone that you love that was kind of like what drove you to be grateful and show gratitude and just keep working no matter how hard or what kind of setbacks. But, setbacks, what they are, they set you back, but they don't take you all the way back. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that also. Pastor Darren, who you are, is who you are is who you're supposed to be. It was already written. So, and we all know that it manifests in unpredictable ways. We can't, fortunately, and I'll say fortunately, we can't fortunately see the future. We don't need to. Even in this new space, where you're at now, as you kind of relate a little bit, their struggle is not necessarily easy to, take on pastoring groups and churches and individuals in those churches. When have there been times you didn't feel so, bubbly or driven to be in this role? Even in, as a pastor, or even like in football, like whatever space that you're in, the passion doesn't always just sit there, and there's sometimes struggle. How did you push through those moments?
Yes. As far as football, when you are, and again, right, like Larry said, when you're doing something you love, it's obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off your goal, take your eyes off your dream. So that was always my dream. So I learned early on that having that drive and that passion, that was all part of it. I was a walk-on. I didn't get a scholarship, so I mean, I was, fifth round pick. I got cut after my first year. So all these different things happened, but I always knew that I want to give myself the best opportunity I can to achieve. And even if I don't achieve my dream, if I give my absolute best, I know that everything would be okay, right? And I'd be able to deal with it. The one thing that destroys people is having regret of saying, man, I wonder what would have happened if I would have fill in the blank. So I would say, man, that was probably, one of the main things as I look back on it and I see, that really, if I can point to something, I would say, man, I pointed to that. And then, I pull, you can pull from anything, and I pull from that and place it in a number of different situations, right? Whether it's in, marriage or talking to couples. One of the most devastating things is when you talk to a couple and you're leading them down this road and you're coaching them, you're guiding them biblically, and then you hear, 6 months later they decided to split. It's just like, oh my gosh, what else could I have said? But then I remember, specifically talking to other people, and they say, your role is to provide biblical guidance to these couples. If they decide to use it, praise God. If they don't, it's not on you, right? You've done what the Lord has asked you to do. So that really helped me, and it really helped me to eliminate that, that piercing, when things don't go your way. It just helped me eliminate that. So those would be probably the two things that I would point to say those are the ones.
Yeah, and it's just like you do your part, and however it's meant to be, it'll be. But you know what? You were meant to be in that role, in that part of their lives, and whatever they took with it, they got the information they needed, and that was, I didn't get it because now outside of this podcast, I have a private practice, and as a diet, so I'm a dietitian. Just make sure if you guys know that or not, but. What's my role as a dietitian? I specifically work with people one-on-one. So it's a lot of consultation, and it's a lot of listening. It's a lot of guidance. And you have to really understand the person and to be able to know that you can only provide what you can provide. Sometimes they just may not be in a position where they're ready to hear it, ready to implement it. And you have to allow that to be, because we can't force anything. You're correct. But like you said, you have that piercing feeling because you care. It's like Larry, if a child that you knew that's been a part of your academy since day one, since he first started, and something happened in his life, and he made the wrong choice, and it's like a lost cause. We lost that. So it's kind of a feeling of loss. And when you really have a passion in your heart to really help people, it is never going to be a nice feeling when you gave them your all, and the way that the right decision that they made wasn't necessarily what you had provided for them. But at the very end, we did our part. we make some sort of impact on their lives. Whenever that time comes for them to be where they're supposed to be, it'll happen. So like, I totally understand, how that feeling, that tug of war feeling, but it just really shows that you care, and you're following not just your calling, but you're following what you're supposed to be doing. So we're going to keep talking about this because as leaders, any leader would tell you, most leaders, you would hope that it's not about them, it's about others. At least you hope that's like deep down, that's what's going on behind the scenes. So we're going to talk about lessons for others, because as we're continuing to have these conversations, we're talking about the struggles and the passion. Now what can be some words of encouragement or things we can kind of give out to others. So Larry, I'm get the microphone back to you. Every person that boldly walk outside of the norm to fulfill their passion. And when I say boldly outside, they can be the first person to go to college, or they can be the first person to move to another state, or first person to, like you said, Pastor Darren, you walked on. You went to tryouts. You didn't get accepted. You had to work for it. So it's stepping outside of the norm. You're kind of testing the waters. But we know that they're going to face, there can be times where they kind of shuffle on that they really make the right choice when they do that. And sometimes they just let their dreams go. So what would be like your words of encouragement to help redirect a person, to help them to get back on the path they truly want to follow when it comes to their dreams?
I think, with that, description, I think people comes to mind. Just the first word is just people. When I think of in the business space, it's obviously, people. You have to bring in people that are like-minded. You need them to have that same sort of drive that you have, that same sort of mission to accomplish that you have. And if it's not the right fit, if it's just not the right personality, then things don't work. And I think of that in the same sense when you talk about, giving the energy to the young people and who they surround themselves with, the sort of information that they take in is completely based on the people that they surround themselves with. And how do we filter those things out is with, communication and talking about, what the options are. But, those lessons and you need those hard lessons. Obviously, you need to be knocked on your backside to really understand, what it takes to be successful and move forward. But I really think it boils down to, your surroundings, your support group, and those things come in many ways. It's not always your family, your intermediate family. It could be, a coach, it could be a pastor, it could be, a school teacher. It's someone that's going to give you the right energy to push you forward, because we're all, we all feel like, man, one more thing happens and I don't know if I can make it. I mean, we all have that sort of feeling, but it's what pushes us through. What got me through is really looking at the people that are around me, and not necessarily wanting to be successful for them. I mean, you want to make other people proud. I think that's a human instinct. So it is about the people. And I'd say surrounding yourself with a good support system and understanding, what the goal is and what the mission is. And that's very important.
Yeah. And that's so true. I mean, that's why, when it comes to communities and building like networks, like put yourself in those spaces where those individuals have the same mindset, same perspective, same drive, same want to, and surround yourself by them. That's how, when you're in an environment where no one's having these conversations, there's no one that's doing it, you don't see it, you don't hear it. How are you even going to know that you can actually do it? So it takes surrounding yourself by those individuals, surrounding yourself by just enriching growth, and it helps you to see that you can also do that too. So thank you for that, and that's so true. Pastor Darren, what about you? So my question for you is, especially being an athlete, when you are approached by someone who's second guessing themselves, whether it's marriage, whether it's their career, anything in their life, or sometimes they second guess themselves, or they just haven't even been exposed to it. And to me, exposure is a big part of a person's success, because if you don't know it, how would you even know it's possible? So they may not even been exposed to these opportunities that would help to fulfill their passions. What would be the foundational steps you would instill into them to get them into that position where they can at least start to see that there is a possibility?
I feel like the first thing is identity. is them understanding who they are, right? And not necessarily their accomplishments is not necessarily is going to make them, right? It's first of all knowing who they are as a person, right? It's whether they accomplish these things or not. As long as they give their best, then like, again, as I said earlier, that'll be enough for them, right? So it starts with that is understanding, okay, man, who am I? What is my identity? But one of the other things that I've learned more over the past few years is a lot of, not only in marriage, but I've seen a lot of people, they have challenge, they have their mind has been programmed a certain way, and sometimes people feel like, well, this is just how I am, right? This is just how God made me. But when you peel back the layers, what I found is we've really been affected by our family of origin. And and when you are on the journey to success, half the battle is awareness, right? In order to change, you have to become aware of what I need to change. And what I've found is once you start talking to people and understanding, okay, why are you the way you are? And it may not be, this is just how I am. It may be because you've built up these defense mechanisms from your family of origin. And now we have to peel back, we have to go back and we have to change those things. And that can be the road or the wall that's blocking you on your journey. So those would be the two things. But family of origin it's become huge. I see it just about in every married couple I talk to. You see it anytime you talk to someone, most likely if you peel back the layers, it's going to be something from their family where, a coach told them, man, you're never going to be, or, I can't ever see you, doing X, Y, Z. And they've held on to that. So being able to give them that release and understanding, no, you can be, whatever you put your mind to. And then, but even if you don't, your identity, right, doesn't change. Like you still are a masterpiece, as the word of God says.
Yeah. So you're independent. Recognize you're not attached to, those other parts of your life that you couldn't control. That was part of your molding,
Right.
You hear so many, anytime you hear any stories, whether it's an actor, someone in high levels of artists, you always hear, when we hear about their lives, they always go back to a moment in their lives when they were told they couldn't do it, no way is possible. Like that was always a part of their story. And I think, to go back to what you're saying, like, I'm sure any individual that, seeks for more for themselves, that's like something that's in the background that they have to either struggle with, but at some part of their life, they recognize that's not who they are, and some of what they're doing is actually to defy that, So I think when it comes to anyone that wants to follow their dreams, we can't go with status quo. We can't go with what someone has told us. We have to recognize that we are the valuable piece that can create what it is that we want for our lives. And going back to what Larry said, like, in order to be successful, they always say, find those people that are successful. Find a mentor. Find someone that has been there or that's just a couple of steps ahead of you, but also is willing to reach back and say, hey, come with me and I can help you do this together. So I appreciate the words you guys are saying, because obviously, being in any sports and being a team, you have to surround yourself by your teammates for the bigger picture is to win, but you also have to recognize that you are also an individual, and how can you on your own can make the change that you want for your life individually. So great points, really great points. As we're coming to a close, I wish I could ask all the extra questions I wanted to, but I know time is of an essence and I want to respect your time. I do want to carve out some space. So anyone that's listening, anyone that, wants to, learn more about your academy, Larry, or Pastor Darren, the service that you provide in your church, anything, books or anything that you guys have going on, I want to create opportunity to talk about that. So Larry, I'll let you start off. Anything that's happening with the academy, anything that's happening with you, how can people connect with you? How can they learn more?
Well, yeah, there's always great things happening within the academy. A team does a really great job of making sure that all the information is up to date, whether it's about training dates or whether it's our closing dates or, tryouts. So if you have any questions or want any information, lhbastl.com is the place to go to visit, to understand what we're doing, as an academy, as a program. We've just opened our second location in January. which is, we call it LHBA South. It's in South County, in the Fenton area, Grabois Bluffs. So that location is now up and running. And again, my goal is to put multiple locations around the area to allow access to as many families, as many young people that want to visit. So this is just this is two of many that we'll do in the area, just to make it more convenient and make it more accessible for those that really want and need the opportunity.
Larry, I can tell this makes your heart sing.
Oh, it's fun for me. It's fun for me. It's really about the people and the young people that will drop into our communities. That'll be, school leaders. That'll be our lawyers. That'll be employees. That'll be employers. So this academy also supports not only basketball players, but just good people in general.
Great. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for letting us know exactly where we need to go and some of the new things that are happening. Pastor Darren, I know you're in California. Where are some ways that individuals can, learn more about your church, your services? How can they connect with you guys? How can they find you guys, and so forth?
Well, the best way to connect, they can go to sdrock.com. That's our website. All the information, whatever you're looking for, whether it's about singles, whether it's young adults, whether it's marriage, we have a awesome marriage prep. I feel like part of the issue within our society is not only dysfunctional families, but people spend more time and money on preparing for their wedding day as they do for their marriage, which typically is supposed to last a lot longer than their wedding day, right? So there's great opportunity for them to go there. Easier way is if they can just text info to 52525, and they can get downloaded all the information that they need in regards to our church, our services. As we said, we have our pastor wrote a book, Pastor Miles McPherson, on the third option versus, instead of us versus them, let's choose the third option, which is, finding and appreciating our similarities. So those are probably be the two main ways that, that people can get connected. And then from there, like I said, there's a gamut of other things. I wish, that, and I really, in the best of ways, man, I envy what Larry is doing, because, when you look at community, you can give money to your community, but if you don't change their minds and their hearts, sooner or later, there's nothing's going to change in that community. So, our brother, I really appreciate what you're doing in your community, man. And I'll continue to pray for you that you have, hundreds. I don't know if you want that many, but you have as many as your heart desires, and that, young people's lives will be changed, and as well as they grow up. What happens if you raise them the right way, then those men and women get married, and now they can have an opportunity to change the lives of their kids, and it continues. So I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it. The love and support and prayers that I can always get. So I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, so here you go. It shows you that leadership is transferable, and whatever your passion is, put the work behind it, because you'll find that whatever your passion is, it's probably has nothing to do with the end goal of is making you happy. Your happiness really gleans from making those others around you happy. And you guys are proving that through the work that you guys are doing. So again, I can't say enough. I appreciate you gentlemen are very busy, and I appreciate you just carving out that 45 minutes to have these conversations. And I'm hoping that, what your voice and your language is something going to seep into others' hearts and to help them to reach their goals as they move along in their future. So as we're getting to a close, guys, reach out to Larry Hughes, reach out to Pastor Darren. They gave out the information. I'll put in all of the social media tags, figure out so you can learn more about them, share it to others. This is such a great conversation, such a well-needed conversation. So take this podcast, share it to other individuals that that are struggling with their identity, understanding how to position themselves to pursue their dreams. Because to me, this is what life is about. Life is about living your dreams. But not only living your dreams for yourself, but living your dreams for others as well. So again, guys, thank you for coming on. And for those who are out there, I'll see you guys next time. So thanks for being a part of their stories, their struggles, and their successes. Because of the work of the local dairy farmers and efforts from Midwest Dairy, we were able to bring more monthly conversations to you from mindful leaders that can be able to come to the table and tell you about their own path that can inspire you. So be on the lookout for next month's panel, Conversations with Mindful Leaders. See you next month.